Hello, here today in the Tier 8 Premium British aircraft carrier, the Indomitable. On the map north, the mode is Domination. We're against an enemy Shukaku. We're in 8 to 10 matchmaking, so we are in fact bottom tier. Now we're revisiting the Shukaku today because as of patch 0.9.1, the Shukaku is now the only carrier remaining that is capable of the so-called slingshot attack, where you use the immunity frames during an attack reset on level bombers or dive bombers typically, but you can also do it on rockets technically, in order to get through AA in an inordinate fashion. There's apparently 2 destroyers here, so I'm going to spray them with a fairly ugly reticle, which makes the Indomitable truly unique. She's also uniquely decent in terms of being a carrier that can survive being bottom tier. You're not going to see it here because the combined AA of the twinned Z52s is actually quite fearsome, especially because they're divved. However, the point is that the Indomitable is now the only carrier capable of this slingshot attack. What this means, of course, is that you can make an attack, use the immunity frame timer at the end of that attack to kind of zoom through AA, and then make another attack shortly after. Now, normally for other carriers, once you make that attack and leave the immunity frame timer, there'll be a 7-second cooldown, during which you cannot make an attack, which is why, well, you cannot slingshot any longer. However, you can see there just now that my immunity frame timer reset is about half a second, which means I can make another attack almost immediately. This, as a result, means that I can plunge through rather heavy AA with the immunity frame timer and then just simply make a quick attack and pull through into the skies. The fact that my aircraft have 3,000 health, of course, is extremely, well, helpful for doing this, because it means that they're more likely to survive the climb. The 2x2 squadron means I just make an attack and then immediately slingshot out, and my planes will more or less, if the attack is performed properly, zoom climb out into immunity with a relative impunity. I'm heading over here for this lone Georgia. Not a perfect target because he does a 38mm midsection. I have 32mm of penetration, but most of his ship is covered in vulnerable 32mm plate. You can see me diving through there, using that 3,000 hit point pool. Apparently he was reversing, so I should have slingshot a bit further out. But now I know. I set a fire and hit one pen. Don't care about anything other than the fire, really, because that is now going to be the target of our ire. Drawing from my reserves to make repeated attacks, the signature play of the Indomitable. He's a bit distant, so I'm actually going to hold off on using the rest of my boost bar. With a reversing Georgia, he's probably reversing about 20 knots, given his speed boost. Probably want to slingshot at about 8 kilometers. Half my bar is left. Now going to start my zoom climb. Normally you'd do it at about 10. He's approaching me now though, however. So I'm going to reset, and you can see I'm resetting my, after the immunity frame timer, at about 4.5 kilometers in this case. Reset him on fire twice and hit him with 8 penetrating hits for a double fire, so he's going to roast. And you can see for that I lose 1 aircraft, which means I can repeatedly draw from the squadron and do it again and again and again and again until I'm quite satisfied with the results. This does of course mean that the Indomitable is somewhat weak at dealing with targets that are a little more resistant. I do find the Z52 after a short delay. Z52A is actually decent. Hit him with 1 bomb, but I'm really just using him as a slingshot projectile. I decide to abort the attack, and by I decide, I mean I in third person, but I'm not actually narrating in post-game, I'm actually live, so I'm going to abort the attack because I took a bit too much damage. I'm going to make an attack there and reconsider my options. Enemy Z52 recklessly splits off from his buddy. Now I should have forced that Z to smoke fairly early, So hopefully I can sneak forward. Looks like we've secured C quite safely with those kills, so I might try for some aggression. Z52 quite clearly, hitting the cap. He's just outside of his smoke. Sadly for him, he had the smoke a little too early, which means I'm going to slam him out, set him on fire, get some defended ribbons, and force him from the cap zone. Zooming out and away, my rocket planes have 2,300 health, which is a substantial amount, which means I can dive through and hit things. Now the rockets themselves are kind of crap. They only deal 2,100 HE alpha, and only have 28 millimeters of penetration, but they're fast and the platform carrying them is tanky. So they have their uses. Looking for my target, you can see that Georgia that I hit initially, still alive at this point. And no longer ablaze. My squadrons have recovered somewhat, 5 out of 10 left on the ship. Some Montana, oh, but more importantly there's a Drake which is actually already inside my range. So probably just gonna make a hit. See if we can dive through with our speed. Plunge out of the AA zone. 4,000 health left, which means one of the planes is at less than half health. At this point here, probably just gonna F. Z52 is once more contesting the cap. I know his smoke did not cover. So it's gonna be Holland with that Z52. Looks like he's just hovering at the corner. There's a Drake on one side. But I am going to help reset this. I'm going to touch that Drake AA briefly. And drag my planes over in the storm. You can see the draw distance is not particularly great. I failed to find him, so it looks like he's actually on the edge over here. And indeed, there he is. A quick reset. He opens up fire. Gonna continue harassing him. And peel off away from his allied AA. So I'm facing him alone, and once more I get to blow the Z-52's valuable smoke and force him from the cap zone. Montana is now close enough to harass. He has a similar armor scheme to the Georgia, but the Georgia has limped away. You'll note we do control 2 caps currently, however, so we're in a comfortable cap position. We are down on kills, however. Looks like that Montana's under pressure, but the first ship I find is that Georgia. So again, make that slingshot attack. Not going to have a perfect approach angle, but I'm just looking for a fire. Note that the Indomitable, in addition to having the reduced reset timer, also has a smaller reticle than her implacable half-sister in the tech tree, which allows you to make relatively accurate hits even from a poor angle like so. I don't know why there's a Shukaku bomber here, but I'm just going to defend him. I set a fire, which got damage control. Oh, no, actually it's still ticking, but nevertheless, because he's covered in extensive amounts of 32mm armor, in spite of that 38mm midsection, still going to continue to chase after that Georgia. He's pushing away, which is why I can slingshot so close at 8 kilometers. Plunging through, re-engaging him at about 3 kilometers. And I'm able to rake his superstructure once more. Bunch of shatters. And apparently I was briefly spotted. The ships beside me seem to have taken some damage. Georgia fire is now out. The Montana is alone and pushing. So I have some options to consider. Now obviously I should try and finish off some targets. So it might be best in this case if I pressured the Montana. However, I think he's pushing into my teammates, which means I should be fine, theoretically. So I'm going to plunge through, past the Bismarck, past the Drake, using that immunity frame timer. You can see the flak is thick, but I'm here for my fire. Montana does unfortunately dispatch another ship, and I fail to hit enough bombs to set a fire. Montana is dropping. or theoretically should have been dropping, but he's now healing. So probably means I need to pressure him at this point. Can't faff about any longer. Resetting, swinging through using the cover, arming, and now turning. He's already on fire, unfortunately, so my damage is unlikely to add too much impact, and pretty poor dispersion means I only get 2 penetrations. Hopefully they can finish him off. I'm going to go for this lion now, which is a vulnerable 32mm coated target, which happens to be a little bit closer. So unlike the Montana, the lion has 32mm of plate pretty much all over his ship, which means I should get more or less full penetrations. Rake him. Only 3 bombs hit, and one of my bombs does contact a turret. You can see I'm at half health, and there's a fighter pursuing me, but I still have 1300 health, which means I can quickly just zoom climb out into the sky, F out, reset, and go after the lion once more. Fast reset timer means also that I can take planes off from my hull quite rapidly. Scared of getting spotted by my hull, there's a fighter, but my planes are uninterceptable because I can quickly make a reset attack and attack before the fighter even tags me. 10,000 damage this time, and a fire. We've lost our cap advantage. Our Holland is going to be fairly important. So before I go make another follow-up strike, I'm going to drop him a fighter. And yes, we should pressure that lion because he is the closest applicable kill. My fire is still ticking, but I'm here for raw HE alpha because I know in this case that most of my bombs will not shatter. He's reversing, so looking for a nose fire and just raking pens. And indeed that's enough alpha damage to put him out of his misery. Do note that Georgia I harassed earlier is still alive. Because of the nature of the Indomitable's HE damage, it is fully healable in many aspects. So as a result, given time, ships will recover. Now I don't have a great target in range, so I'm actually just going to go for some fires on the GK, just because he's close. Now he's going to shatter the majority of my bombs. It's just GK things, but I'm just trying to set him on fire. 3 shatters. Not what I'm here for. We'll try again. You can see his AA, even with the Takao, is unable to deal enough damage to actually push me away. Plunging through at 4 kilometers, I'm past the strongest aura of the GK, the long range, trying to get fires onto his superstructure. Again, no fires, so unfortunately, not able to finalize an attack, but I'm just going to harass him repeatedly because he's not able to kill any of the planes because his A is insufficiently powerful to bring down a 3,000 health Indomitable bomber. I'm able to just go at him over and over, and while we hold the cap advantage, as long as we don't lose too many ships in quick order or short order, should be able to put some substantial damage onto him. He has a superstructure fire already. Still going to continue at him because I have nothing better to hit at the moment. But do note that my productivity here is relatively low. Looks like since someone else scored that superstructure fire, I'm going to look for another kill. There's a Drake there. Looks like the GK might have damage controlled his fire based on his hit points not ticking. So let's ameliorate this situation. When there's an Indomitable and there's a ship that you've been hitting, he should be on fire at all times. lead him enough to get fires across the superstructure, but again, fire RNG says no in spite of my 30-something fire chance per bomb. There's a destroyer. Oh no, that's actually just a Drake hard spot. But anyway, gonna push forward slightly to protect myself. Rely on my armored deck. Push forward enough that the Drake cannot actually see me. Continue to harass this GK who has resisted fires about 4 attacks in a row now. 5 attacks in a row now. Kind of annoying, not gonna lie. But we really need this kill. I'm gonna use this Drake as a slingshotting platform, just because he's in my way. You can see the Drake's AA by itself is insufficient to resist as well. 6 bomb hits, plunge after the GK, and he's healing. 1 plane left because of the extended AA. Trying really hard to get that superstructure fired, but fire RNG just says no. Bomb RNG says no too, and we get a def. We really need this GK to go down. Trying to try with the fastest squadron now. I can't pen anything other than superstructure, but I have no choice. This is the only way I can really go for a kill in short order. Okay, someone gets a kill. Now I can switch tactics and go for this Drake. The Drake is a little closer and a little easier to bomb out. Got a fire, and he's under pressure from my teammates. Don't have space to make a slingshot attack here, so I'm just gonna have to manual with a full squadron. He's popping his super heal. Lead him. It's actually easier for me to relaunch than to turn around because of the poor turning circle of the Indomitable aircraft. I'm gonna pressure that super heal as much as possible. Don't care about the accuracy, don't have time to make swooping attacks. Set another double fire, gonna try and just keep him on fire. We constantly need kills because of the close point differential. Finally we get a fire and a kill, which will buy some more time. Now we're in the lead. We've squeezed ever so slightly into the lead. And we have a cap advantage at this point, so now we can afford to bleed some points as long as we don't lose a bunch of kills in short order. Venezia is now the closest applicable target. And with that said, we're able to kill our way to a victory. There you got to see the repeated slingshot attacks on that GK. Unfortunately, we didn't have the desired effect of producing some fires, but as you can see, we had quite the game. 151,000 damage, 113 bomb hits, 3 in caps, 2 kills, 11 fires, 4 defender ribbons, 11 spotting ribbons, 31 rocket hits, and 5 planes interdicted by fighter. Team score wise, we're bottom tier, so easily able to top the scoreboards in this tier 10 game at 2400. If you go to the detailed report, you can see the vast majority of your damage actually comes from, well, bomb alpha and fires. That Georgia that we damaged but left alive, you did 50,000 damage to, but remember, because we left him alone more or less and didn't finish him off, he was actually able to survive the game limping away. Now we did push him down quite a bit away, but the fact of the matter is this 50,000 damage almost didn't matter because we'd never finalized a kill. Drake took quite a bit of damage and had some fairly unlucky RNG with fire. Seems like all the fire RNG we wanted on the GK went to the Drake instead. And the line showed off how, when you can actually penetrate the armor, the Indomitable bombs are a fearsome armament. In his case, you can see he actually took more raw bomb alpha than fire damage. Then you get to a case like the GK, where his armor shatters my bombs, and I have shitty RNG, so as a result, dropping 35 bombs, I do half the damage I did to the Lion, even though I dropped some 13 more bombs that hit the target and attacked him probably like 4 more times. Heading back to port, this is the Indomitable herself. So as you can see, she's quite a stubby armored carrier, a illustrious class armored carrier, the predecessor to the check tree ship, the Implacable, which is kind of an improved illustrious class, so you will see significant similarities in hull form. As for the Indomitable herself, however, do note that she is also an armored carrier, so she has this armored strip. It consists of a primary belt of 76, of midsection armored flight deck, and an external section of 38mm. The bow and stern, however, are still 25, so don't expect yourself to have the same resilience as a uniformly armored Tier 10 carrier like the Hikaru or Midway, however. The bow and aft are 21mm, so this will shatter destroyer HE, but the midsection is 19, which will take destroyer HE, so fairly resistant at longer ranges to HE and AP fire, but at close range is quite vulnerable, especially because she has a raised citadel that is right behind this armor plate and juts up above underneath the island, which means that she can take catastrophic amounts of damage in short order if you don't protect her properly. She does actually have a fairly decent concealment of 11.8 fully spec'd, and this is without concealment experts, so fairly stealthy carrier with good armor, but still don't get too hasty. It's not like you have Graf Zeppelin secondaries or anything, so just use the armor, speed, and concealment to your advantage. Doing 30.5 knots, she is quite fast. Now module-wise, fairly straightforward. First 2 slots, there's only 1 plane upgrade each, so take the plane upgrades. Then slot 3, you also don't have that many choices because you don't have a torpedo bomber. You have to take either secondary battery modification or attack aircraft modification. Your secondaries are absolute trash, so they're not even worth upgrading, so you might as well take a couple extra seconds on your attack plane so you can theoretically make some longer attacks. Slot 4, also a no-brainer. You might have 2 attack squadrons, but your primary squadron and really only real attack squadron is your bombers, so you take bomber health. And last but not least, you're a Saipan type carrier, you have low reserves, so you take deck space. Without the flight control modification, you would have 8 bombers and 12 attack planes on your deck. With the flight mod, you not only increase this to 12 or 14 and 10, but you also reduce your servicing time by a further 5%. And the servicing time, well, it's not horrific, is fairly long at 104 for rockets and 106 for bombers fully upgraded. Captain-wise, the Indomitable differs slightly from the classical British carrier build because, well, she doesn't have torpedo bombers, so you don't need torpedo acceleration. Instead, you opt for air supremacy into improved engines to amplify that incredible speed on the de Havilland Sea Hornets, into aircraft armor, into survivability expert. After that, opt for demolition expert, and that's your basic 12-point build. You can do whatever you want from there. My recommended spec is that you take concealment expert and then any amount of 3-point skills, whether it be adrenaline rush and a 1-pointer or 3 1-pointers like me. You could also take site stabilization. It does help a little bit, but as you saw, the bombers on the Indomitable, not only do they have a smaller reticle than that of the Implacable, but it already aims quite quickly. Now, as I mentioned repeatedly throughout the commentary, the planes are, of course, the de Havilland Sea Hornet, a very fast but poor turning aircraft. They have an incredibly large hit point pool. The attack airplanes have 2300 health fully upgraded, and do 234 knots boosted. The rockets they carry are mediocre, but they are useful for starting fires on occasion and finishing off low HP targets. The bombers, on the other hand, are your bread and butter at 2,999 hit points. They also cruise at an incredible 187 knots of speed, which, just for reference, should be close to the boosted speed of the Shukaku Aichi B7 or B7A Ryusei. You can see B7A Ryusei boosts up to 177. So and the dive bomber variant boosts up to 185. So no matter what, your planes are always going to be faster than the Shokakus. This is some other beneficial side effects because, of course, the fighter plane squadron, the consumable that you launch from your aircraft squadrons, is based on your own aircraft. So in this case, her fighter is the Howland Sea Hornet, which means, well, her fighters do a default speed of 193 knots, which means they will almost always catch enemy aircraft unless they happen to be an enemy Indomitable or an enemy Graf Zeppelin doing 221 knots. The bombs themselves are kind of middling. It's a 250-pound general-purpose high-explosive bomb with a maximum bomb alpha of 4,700. It penetrates 32mm of armor, and each plane carries 6 bombs, with 2 planes in each attack package. You end up with a per-pass density of 12 bombs per pass. They have 34% chance of fire with my build, but as you saw, 34%, while good, is still somewhat reliant on RNG. You are going to get instances like that GK repeated attack where you could never get a fire. If you compare this to the Audacious's 41mm penetration bomb, these are somewhat inferior. So you'll see here the 500-pound GP bomb carried by the Audacious has 41 mils of pen and does 6,000 alpha, so substantially worse. However, the reticle is much smaller, as you saw throughout the commentary, so you get a much more focused bombing run, allowing much greater precision and the capability to even tackle destroyers if you should so choose. Do note, however, that the Audacious planes have 3,086 health, so just a tiny bit more than the Indomitable's bombers, but 2 whole tiers above. However, they only boost to a maximum speed of 181 while you cruise at 187, so that just gives you an idea of just how high quality these Indomitable bombers are. Anyhow, with that said, that was just a quick revisit to the Indomitable. I figured I'd revisit her since these slingshot changes did affect pretty much every carrier in terms of how they can play and what kind of AA they can plunge through, with the exception of this special carrier over here. She remains very specialized in her role. If you remember the Georgia, which I failed to finish off, she does struggle in games where you're going to need to finish off targets, but in games that go long, where you can afford to take your time and you're not in a particular hurry to finish kills immediately, she is definitely fully capable of being a bit of a degenerate farmer and burning her way to the top. I hope you enjoyed. That'll be all for now, and I will catch you all later. Cheers.